Washington, D.C. has sued the Trump administration, challenging President Trump's deployment of National Guard troops in the district. Officials are alleging that the president's deployment of 2,000 National Guard troops to the nation's capital was an illegal use of the military for domestic law enforcement. The suit comes as the Trump administration has said it might expand the use of the National Guard in other major cities. Let's bring in CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe now. Ed, very good to see you as always. What is the White House saying about this particular lawsuit?
Yeah, well, a notable filing there by the Attorney General of the District of Columbia saying it's an unconstitutional involuntary military occupation. But the White House turns around and says in part that the president is, quote, well within his lawful authority to deploy the National Guard in Washington. And they add that the lawsuit is an attempt to, quote, undermine the president's operation. But important to point out, just 2 days ago, a federal court in Los Angeles, in California, raised similar concerns about the legality of the president's deployment or use of National Guard in Los Angeles earlier this summer. So at some point, all of this is likely to end up in front of the Supreme Court. But the district now arguing that this is happening against the will of those that live here, especially telling that so many of these Guard have come from outside the District of Columbia, aren't familiar with this area, and therefore are sort of participating in what amounts, in their view, again, to an unconstitutional occupation.
Well, even as this lawsuit unfolds today, the interim commanding general of D.C.'s National Guard announced that there's been an extension of the Guard's mission in the nation's capital. I'm going to ask you about that, but first have a listen to what he had to say.
I've made the decision to extend the encampment as we continue to work to ensure that everyone that walks through these city streets is safe.
So, Ed, what is the reason behind this latest move?
Well, it's notable that the White House is, in essence, referring questions about this to the Army, to the Pentagon, which is sort of now suggesting that they're trying to put some separation here between the White House calling for this and the professionals who actually do these deployments and oversee it all, suggesting it needs to continue. Remember, we have done an analysis of the crime statistics here at CBS News that showed that in those first 2 weeks of the federal deployment, there were continued drops in virtually every single type of crime here in the District of Columbia. It had already been trending down by double digits this year, but that slide continued because of this deployment. So, in essence, the director, or the commander of the D.C. Guard saying it's going to continue at least until November is an acknowledgement by local leaders, at least, that it is continuing. And remember, the mayor herself had suggested, while there are concerns about this, while they want to establish sort of how this is going to wind down, even she had to acknowledge that the numbers are continuing to go down because of this beefed up presence of law enforcement and military in the streets of the nation's capital.
All right, Ed O'Keefe, very good to see you as always. Thank you very much.
Take care.